In an era when people of color were relegated to the background and given insignificant roles, a woman rose up and said, "Enough is enough." Pam Grier had the courage to change the course of history by excellently taking on a black female lead action role in a film, and nothing was ever the same again. Several years later, she is still remembered as the fierce woman who contributed to the popularity of the blaxploitation genre and paved a way for women who looked like her. Pam Grier is now in her 70s, and you'll be amazed by how much she has changed over the years. But before we explore what her life looks like now, here is everything you need to know about the blaxploitation star, from her early years on her grandparents' sugar beet farm to her unique experience with love and career. You certainly don't want to miss any of these details about Pam Grier. Her early life in military bases. When the name Pam Grier is mentioned, many people remember the badass actress who was the star of blaxploitation. She had the looks, the curves, and the moves, but no one really knew what her early years looked like before she became a star. Grier's early life was a combination of childhood lessons and a traumatic experience that she rarely talks about. She was born in 1949 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to Gwendolyn Sylvia and Clarence Ransom. Her mother was a homemaker and a nurse, while her father was a technical surgeon in the United States Air Force. The nature of her father's job meant that she spent a good part of her early years moving from one place to another. She experienced the transient lifestyle of military bases, where diversity thrived within the confines of the close-knit communities. Yet beyond the gates, the harsh realities of racism lurked, leaving indelible impressions on her young mind. One fateful day while they lived in Ohio, Pam and her mother were walking home after shopping. Soon enough, she noticed that buses were zooming past them, and none of the buses were willing to stop for them. The curious 6-year-old Pam asked her mother why they refused to stop, and her mother's answer opened her eyes to the complexities of race and the impact it could have on people. Sadly, racism was the only harsh reality she was exposed to at an early age. The event that traumatized her. Not many people know about this part of the actress's life, but when she was only 6 years old, she experienced something horrific that shattered her heart and threatened to take away her innocence. Years after she became successful, she revealed that when she was only 6 years old, she was sexually abused by a cousin and his group of friends. One can only imagine how devastating this must have been for her. Thankfully, Pam was rescued by a telephone repairman, but the damage was already done. The incident left her with pain and grief that she could not handle. She went from being an outgoing and jovial child to a child who was extremely reserved. It got so bad that she developed a stutter. In a 2010 interview, Pam spoke about how difficult that phase was. She said, "It took so long to deal with the pain of that. You try to deal with it, but you never really get over it, and not just me. My family endured so much guilt and anger that something like that happened to me." This incident remains one of her most painful childhood memories. Growing up amidst the ever-changing landscapes of military life made Pam develop a keen sense of adaptability and resilience. These were values ingrained in her from an early age, as she learned to navigate the shifting dynamics of each new environment she encountered. From her time spent in Swindon, UK, where she embraced cricket and shared her American culture with English friends, to the moments of emotional turbulence following her parents' separation at age 13, life taught Pam lessons that carried her through different phases of life. Whenever she talks about her childhood, she shares fond memories of her childhood days on her maternal grandparents' farm in rural Wyoming. She once said, "My rural upbringing played a large role in who I am. My grandfather was the first feminist. He taught me to fish and inspired me to get an education. But through it all, acting was never part of her plans." Her early career and a painful heartbreak. Pam once said, "When I was a young girl, I never thought of acting. I never thought of television, of fans, movie stars, and signing autographs. It never crossed my mind." When her family moved to Denver, Colorado, Pam began to attend East High School. While she was in school, she developed a passion for performing arts, particularly acting. She participated in a number of stage productions and local beauty pageants in order to raise money for her tuition. Soon enough, she realized that she wanted to pursue acting professionally, so she packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles. On getting there, she didn't have many resources, so she had to stay with some relatives who had a garage she could sleep in. She later got a job to work the switchboard at American International Pictures, where she was discovered by director Jack Hill. But before her career took off, love came knocking. Before she became famous, Pam Grier's relationship dilemma with basketball player Ferdinand Louis Alcindor, who later changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was a significant moment in her early career and personal life. She was in love with him and ready to build a future with him, but fate had other plans. They met in 1969, presumably during a time when both were rising stars in their respective fields. However, their relationship took a complicated turn when Abdul-Jabbar proposed to Grier, but with a condition attached. She would have to convert to Islam immediately. For Grier, this proposition posed a difficult dilemma. While she likely had strong feelings for Abdul-Jabbar, the requirement to convert to Islam on short notice would have been a profound and life-altering decision. Surely, asking someone to make such a significant change overnight can be overwhelming and may lead to internal conflict. Abdul-Jabbar made it clear that if she refused, he would marry a Muslim lady who was groomed specially for him. Grier refused, and her refusal to comply with Abdul-Jabbar's condition proved that she was unwilling to compromise her beliefs or identity for the sake of their relationship. There is no denying that this decision speaks to her strength of character and independence, as well as her commitment to staying true to herself. It must have been a shocking and emotional experience for Grier to witness the person she cared about making such a significant commitment to someone else so suddenly. She was left heartbroken, but deep within her, she knew she made the right decision. This dilemma certainly affected Grier, but she decided to focus on her career instead of spending time crying over spilled milk. Shortly after, Jack Hill recognized Grier's potential and cast her in his film The Big Dollhouse in 1971, marking her debut in the film industry. This role kick-started her acting career, and she went on to collaborate with Hill on several other projects, most of which earned her the title of the Queen of Sexploitation. While Grier did not receive formal training in acting before her entry into the industry, she honed her craft through her experiences on set and developed a unique screen presence. As her career progressed, it became clear that there was something different about this actress. Her ability to take on strong, independent female characters in blaxploitation films made her stand out, and before she knew it, she was dominating the industry, becoming the queen of blaxploitation. When her career started progressing, Pam became one of the actresses who made the women in prison subgenre films popular in her time. This genre usually centered around women who were captured and treated badly by captors. When asked about the impact of these films, she said, "Audiences also got to see a woman of color stand up and speak up. Everyone knew that they'd been oppressed for so long, never allowed to fight back." Her roles in women in prison films like Women in Cages and The Big Birdcage gave the viewers a chance to see women break free from the shackles of bondage. But it wasn't the women in prison movies that made her unforgettable. It was her role in the blaxploitation genre that established her as a movie star. It was in the 1970s that this genre of film became popular among moviegoers and studios. Initially, films in this genre were produced independently by black filmmakers for black audiences. Films like Shaft and Sweet Sweetback were considered some of the first films ever produced in this genre. Although these films were undoubtedly interesting, it was said that a lot of well-known theaters blatantly refused to play these blaxploitation films. Many of these theaters believed that blaxploitation films were below their standard. But as time went on, it became clear that blaxploitation films deserved more traction than they were getting. Filmmakers like Gordon Parks ensured that blaxploitation films were made with a certain level of excellence, and it wasn't long before moviegoers began to realize just how phenomenal these films were. After several years of creating films like these, the blaxploitation genre finally started getting traction in the early 1970s as people from different ethnicities began to clamor to watch these movies. People soon realized that there was nothing substandard about these movies. As a matter of fact, they were some of the most excellent and interesting movies created at the time. When the blaxploitation genre began to gain attention, Pam Grier was certainly the actress who made this genre even more interesting. She was the epitome of cool in the 1970s, earning herself the nickname Blaxploitation Queen for her unforgettable roles in those gritty, action-packed flicks. You couldn't miss her commanding presence on screen. She was the definition of fierce. Take Jack Hill's Coffee, for example. In that film, she played a nurse who's had enough of the drug scene wrecking her community, so she takes matters into her own hands, dishing out justice like nobody's business. There was no denying that her character was the baddest one chick hit squad that ever hit town, and people were completely mesmerized by this actress. A beautiful black woman fighting off bad guys was not something you saw on screens often back in the day, and Pam Grier certainly took her role seriously as a pioneer of action female roles. Sure, there were many black actresses who were undoubtedly talented, but Pam was unmatched. She came onto the scene and made audiences wonder why there were not more people who looked like her acting in such roles. Her role in Coffee made several critics fall in love with her. One of the critics, Robert Elbert, was so impressed by her role that he called her an actress of beautiful face and astonishing form, and he made it clear that she possessed a kind of physical life, missing from many other attractive actresses. For Pam Grier, this was more than a role. It was an opportunity for her to show the world what people of color were capable of. In a later interview, she made it clear that audiences were hungry for female action heroes, and she knew that taking on the role in Coffee would be the beginning of a revolution in the movie industry. She also revealed that black actors were tired of being typecast as people who did menial jobs like maids and nannies. Black actors were extremely talented and had so much more to offer than the roles that boxed them. In her words, there were not many opportunities for people of color. You had to create jobs and careers. Let's just say she successfully accomplished this goal, and it wasn't long before people began to see just how versatile people of color could be. The film Coffee became a box office success. Pam Grier successfully made history as the first black woman to headline an action film. Pam Grier owned her role so excellently that it became difficult for any female star to replicate what she did. As more and more people flooded the theaters to watch Coffee, it became clear that Pam Grier was one of a kind, the kind of female black action star that could not be replaced. Then came her role in Foxy Brown, where she portrayed a woman scorned, seeking vengeance for her lover's death. Pam brought so much intensity to these characters, you couldn't help but root for them. But it wasn't just about kicking butt and taking names. Pam's characters were also all about embracing their sexuality and owning their femininity. They were strong, sexy, and unapologetically themselves, a breath of fresh air in a time when women were often sidelined or portrayed as damsels in distress. And let's not forget her other iconic roles like Sheba Baby, where she played a private eye going up against some seriously shady characters, or Friday Foster, where she's a photographer caught in the middle of a political conspiracy. No matter the role, Pam Grier brought authenticity, charisma, and a whole lot of attitudes to the screen. Looking back on the years when her career was booming, it is clear that Pam has always moved with intentionality. Almost every role she took passed a message across. She undoubtedly inspired women to be more confident and daring through her roles. With each role, she broke stereotypes and made women feel seen and valued. Considering her phenomenal acting skills, the fact that she never won an Academy Award is shocking. Turning pain into purpose. You see, Pam didn't have an easy road, especially when it came to her own sense of self-worth and sexuality. As you know, growing up, she faced some pretty traumatic experiences, including being sexually assaulted as a child. It's the kind of thing that can really shake a person to their core and make them question everything about themselves. Despite these painful experiences, Pam found herself drawn to roles in films like Coffee, Foxy Brown, Sheba Baby, and Friday Foster. These were powerful characters who weren't afraid to take matters into their own hands, just like Pam was doing in her own life. But here's the thing, Pam never saw herself as sexy, not after what she'd been through. In fact, she often pushed away her sexuality, fearing that it would make her a target for more harm. But something changed when she stepped into those roles. Through playing these fierce, confident characters, Pam found a newfound sense of empowerment. She tapped into her own anger and trauma, channeling it into her performances. When asked how she accessed the rage needed to bring these characters to life, Pam reflected on her childhood trauma, the abuse she witnessed, the sense of powerlessness she felt as a child in a patriarchal society that condoned violence against women. You see, Pam didn't just play these roles for the sake of it. She played them because she understood the pain and the struggle that her characters were going through. She knew what it was like to fight back against a system that tried to keep her down, and she used that knowledge to bring depth and authenticity to her performances. In a way, playing these roles became a form of therapy for Pam. It was her way of processing the trauma she'd experienced and reclaiming her own sense of power and agency. And through it all, she inspired countless others to do the same, to stand up, speak out, and fight for what they believe in. Her love for comedians. Freddie Prinze and Pam Grier met while she was promoting coffee in 1973, and sparks flew fast and fierce. They fell head over heels in love and even started talking about tying the knot. Freddie was smitten and expressed his desire to have a baby with Pam. But here's where things took a heartbreaking turn. Freddie was battling some serious demons. His struggles with depression and drug addiction cast a shadow over their relationship. Pam had to make the tough decision to walk away, unable to bear witness to his downward spiral. Tragically, Freddie took his own life in 1977, leaving behind his young son, Freddie Prinze Jr. Despite their breakup, Pam remained close to Freddie and was one of the last people he spoke to before his untimely death. Then she met Richard Pryor, the legendary comedian. Pam and Richard crossed paths on the set of Grease Lightning, and let's just say the chemistry was undeniable. They dove headfirst into a whirlwind romance, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Richard was battling his own demons, particularly his addiction to drugs. Pam tried to support him through his struggles, but it wasn't easy. After a brief period of sobriety, Richard relapsed, and things got messy. In her memoir, Pam opened up about how their intimate moments led to her inadvertently ingesting cocaine. Concerned for her health, Pam confronted Richard, but he was resistant to change. Despite their love, Richard ended up marrying someone else while still in a relationship with Pam, a painful betrayal that left her heartbroken. Fighting a deadly ailment. Let's go back to the mid-'80s, and Pam is making her theatrical debut in Sam Shepard's Fool for Love at the Los Angeles Theater Center. Sounds exciting, right? But little did she know, life was about to throw her a curveball. Fast forward a bit, and Pam finds herself working on smaller projects throughout the 80s and 90s. She's hustling, taking on roles in TV shows like Miami Vice, making guest appearances on Martin, Night Court, and even The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She's grinding, making her mark wherever she can. But just when things seem to be on the upswing, life throws Pam another curveball. She's diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer. The doctors give her 18 months to live. It's a devastating blow, but Pam isn't one to back down without a fight. With sheer determination and courage, Pam undergoes vigorous treatment, battling cancer head-on. And you know what? She beats the odds. Despite facing the darkest of days, Pam makes a miraculous recovery and enters remission. It's nothing short of a miracle. When asked about her incredible journey in a 2013 interview, Pam doesn't mince words. She calls surviving cancer her greatest achievement. And you know what? She's absolutely right. Tomorrow is never guaranteed, and Pam knows that firsthand. She's grateful for every single day, cherishing the opportunity to share her heart and soul as an actress with the world. The sexy badass nurse versus present-day Pam Grier. Pam Grier recently appeared in a 2023 interview, and people who were in love with her roles back in the day are amazed by how good she looks in her 70s. One thing is true, she has truly aged gracefully. When she was a sex symbol, there were certain physical qualities that attracted people to her. The best way to describe how she looked was the poster for the film Coffee. Pam Grier, in the poster for Coffee, was epitome of 1970s sex appeal. You couldn't help but notice her face, framed by a halo of voluminous natural curls, is the focal point of the poster. Grier's skin bronzed and luminous. Her figure takes center stage, showcased in all its curvaceous glory. Clad in a form-fitting outfit that accentuates her hourglass silhouette, she exudes confidence and power. Her ample bust and narrow waist cannot be ignored. Decades down the line, it's true that she no longer looks exactly how she looked on that poster, and this is absolutely normal. As someone who has battled a deadly ailment and several other challenges, Pam has found a way to maintain her beauty through it all. In recent years, Pam Grier has embraced her natural aging process with confidence and grace. While her appearance may have evolved, she has retained her signature charm, charisma, and inner strength. Just one look at her and you can tell that she is the very embodiment of sophistication, confidence, and the kind of beauty that doesn't fade away. This actress, who dominated blaxploitation films in the 70s, is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of actress, and even decades later, she has chosen to stay true to herself. It's true that Pam Grier had her fair share of heartbreaks, but her love story is not nearly as tragic as these scandalous love affairs that ended in tragedy.